Arch Advocate Show for Wednesday. Nothing talking about your propaganda. Fools set the rules when the set commands you. Remember that? Rage Against the Machine. What a great... Isn't that first album they came out with? And we'd never heard anything like that before. Like the way that they approached music, it was completely revolutionary. And most of us were like caught up in it. It's like, man, there is some serious drive to this music, man. I love this. Remember that? And then over time, you start listening to like Zach De La Rocha, and you start realizing like, oh man, this guy's just angry. This guy's just angry at everything all the time. And I'm not even sure what he's angry about. He's angry at capitalism, and then he's angry at socialism and communism and isms. He's just walking around, he's just pissed off all the time. What does this guy even do? He just gets up on stage and tells us how pissed off he is. I mean, you get a little bit older, it's like, yeah, brother, I can't maintain that. Like, I can be pissed about injustices, but I can't walk around pissed off all the time without taking action. And what you're talking about is like, oh, I'm just angry because people have, people are suffering from the human condition. Sorry about that. That was my alarm. You know what I mean? Like, the ability to excuse me, the ability to choose your battles, pick your spots. That's a huge tool that you need in your tool belt. Not every hill is worth dying on, And people that walk around all pissed off and angry all the time, it's like, you're selling something. There's no way that you can do that. Like, the only way that you can afford to do that is if you can afford it. You know what I mean? Like money-wise. So here comes Zach De La Rocha and his friends, and all of a sudden they're multi-millionaires and they're on tour and they're one of the last of the great bands that could sell out in an entire stadium and make tens of millions of dollars in one shot. And they're gonna drive around in their limousines talking about how pissed off about capitalism they are. It's like, dude, that's propaganda, right? You don't live out what you say. So it's at that point it's like, well, you're just selling something. It's like Al Gore. It's like, dude, you're flying around on private jets, making $500 million, $500 million off of telling people that the world is going to end in the year 2014. And you're flying around on private jets. Obviously, you don't believe in what you're selling, right? Therefore, I cannot believe in what you're selling. I was willing to buy it, but now that I see that you don't believe what you say you believe, it's just propaganda. And by the way, propaganda by itself, there's actually nothing really wrong with that. Hold on, don't hit stop just yet. Let me qualify that statement. I remember my grandma Geraldine, saint of a woman. She passed, I don't know, it was a long time ago. But I remember one day we were sitting at her coffee table, and I was in the Marine Corps at the time, and so I was having a cup of coffee with my grandma. And I was stirring in my, back then I used to take sugar and cream in my coffee. I've since been cured of that. But I was stirring my sugar in there, and she says, during the war, you know how old people are. During the war, there was a restriction on sugar, as there were restrictions on many things during the Second World War. Nylon stockings, for some reason, needed to go towards the war effort. Sugar, war effort. There was a bunch of stuff that there was just things that you couldn't buy because the federal government needed those things to fight the Nazis and fight the Japs. So there was a shortage. And so what my grandma was saying is there used to be commercials on the radio that would say, just use a little bit of sugar and stir like mad. That's what she said. Use a little bit of sugar and stir like mad. Because, if you put a little sugar in there, if you keep stirring it, it dissolves and turns into a liquid, and then your whole cup of coffee is sweetened. And so the propaganda, right? That's what propaganda is, right? It's like here comes this public service announcement saying, hey, listen, you're not going to be able to buy as much sugar. You're going to need whatever sugar, you're allowed to have, you're going to need to be able to stretch that out. And so we're going to create this radio commercial that's going to teach you how to do that a little bit. That's what propaganda is. And in this example that I just gave you, you think like, oh, there's nothing wrong with that. Exactly. That's my whole point. It's like by itself, propaganda, nothing really wrong with that. However, it's kind of like irony is a lot of times people think irony is supposed to be funny. It's not. There are so few examples of irony being funny that I literally, like, as I sit here recording, I can't think of a single one. Like, irony is not supposed to be funny. Irony is a teaching tool. It's almost always tragedy, right? It's like here's irony. Like you these preachers that go on TV and whatever, and it seems like their only message is about homosexuality, and then it turns out that they like smoke meth and hang out behind the gay bar. That's irony, That's a case of irony, and it's almost always tragic like that. And propaganda is kind of the same way. It's like there's so few examples of like the good side of propaganda, because propaganda is almost always bad. It's almost always lies and misdirection and trying to get people to believe certain things, because crowds can be very easily influenced. There's a very strange dynamic that happens when people get together in groups. It happens to all of us, right? If I go to church, right, I've said this before. Like I have a bit of intolerance, mostly because of the way I grew up and the type of Christian circles that I grew up in. I grew up around a lot of people who did the whole speaking in tongues thing, and that's where Christians they babble in this weird language, and then they tell you like, oh no, this is the language of God and angels, and when I speak this way, God understands me more. God understands me more clearly, and I understand God more clearly, and whatever it is that they say. I don't believe that, right? But however, when I go to church and I get back into those same groups of people, because those people, they're still my friends. I don't condemn them, like they're my friends. I love those people and they love me and whatever. And when I get around those people on a Sunday morning group setting when there's 700 people in the room, and 100 of those people are doing that, and they've gone forward and they go up to the front, like there's something in me that's like, oh, I want to do that. Right? Because there is something magical that happens. And by the way, it's not actually magical. It's very chartable, Like if one of the easiest explanations, I've seriously changed my tune quite a bit on the topic of Jordan B. Peterson, but there's a lot of things that he says where it's just like, okay, this is just dead on science. This is the science, and this guy has poured a great deal of his life into trying to figure out what happened in Germany. How did this happen? Right? Like it's that old analogy that like Bill Burr, the famous comedian, uses. Like when after the firemen put the fire out, they don't just pack up and leave. They put the fire out, they pack the truck, and then they all go in and they try to figure out like, okay, well, what happened here? How did this tragedy happen? How did this house burn down? It's the same thing with Germany. It's like, look, it's been long enough, right? It's been 60, 70, it's been 80 years. Like we can go back now and say, okay, well, what happened here? How did this happen? How did an entire nation of easily one of the most educated groups of people on the planet, one of the most Christian groups of people on the planet, how did these people get turned to such a degree, right? And there's that funny meme. I know many of you have seen it. Like there's that picture, and I guess it's not funny. It's irony. Well, I guess this really wouldn't be a case of irony, but there's that picture of somebody took a picture of an entire crowd like in the 1930s or early 40s. When it's a whole group, it's hundreds of people that you can see in the photograph, And they're all doing the Roman salute to, excuse me, Adolf Hitler. And there's the focus of the picture is there's like this one guy, and he doesn't have his hand up in the air. He's not doing the Roman salute. He's got this kind of look on his face, kind of, it's not real clear because it was a photograph and it was taken a very long time ago, but you can kind of see on his face, he's just like, I don't know what's happening here. I don't know what all these people are so riled up about. Like, this guy's talking crazy talk. You people seem to be very fond of it, right? And what I'm saying is there's a group dynamic. Like, you want to know how Hitler was successful. It's like, well, because people in groups are a lot more easy to persuade than people by themselves, right? It's why, when missionaries come to your door, like Mormon missionaries or Jehovah's Witness missionaries, like, if you're not married, they won't talk to you. You know why? Because if there's not two of you in the room, then there is no group dynamic. And their nonsense doesn't work. Their nonsense, the nonsense that those people talk, it doesn't work very easily on an individual, because when it's a one-on-one situation, it's like if you come to me and say, listen, Pete, I've got something to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about speaking in tongues. I'll be like, okay, all right. Let me go put the kettle on. Let me go grab my Bible. I see you have yours. Let's talk about this, right? But if you get me in a group setting and somebody's up on stage and he's like, I'm going to tell you about the significance and how good it is to speak in tongues, I'm going to be like, yeah, you know what? This is where I get up and walk out. Or, a lot of people will be like, oh, okay, I guess this is totally legit, since evidently that's the guy with the microphone. He must know what he's talking about. He has a microphone, and everybody in this room is looking at him. So he must have the authority. That's where propaganda becomes weaponized, right? Do you understand? Like, do you see the track that I want? Now, again, to all the crypto creeps and all the followers of the Arch Advocate podcast, you crusaders, I apologize. I am sick, and I very rarely, very, very rarely get sick in my life. In fact, just recently, like yesterday, I was looking at my brand new baby son, who was born on Saturday, and he's got his mother's nose. My firstborn son has my nose, but my new son, Ryland, he's got his mama's nose. And I was looking at that thinking, like, I don't care. Really, when it comes to my sons, like, really the only thing I want them to have of mine is like my last name and my immune system and my teeth. That's it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm so blessed to have good health, and everybody in my house is sick right now, including my brand new baby. And it's like, anyways, I was apologizing for sounding sick and coughing and whatever. I know that's very unprofessional, but I appreciate you guys sticking with me. Oh, by the way, support the things you like, folks, or else they go away. All right? If you like Gab AI, then open up a Gab AI account. It's free. All right? If you like this show, hit subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe. If you want to keep the show going, it costs money. You can do PayPal me/ArchAdvocate. You can go onto my website and just click on the PayPal link, or you can become a monthly patron. All monies are appreciated. Thank you so much, and thank you to all you folks who are already contributing. Propaganda, right? There's a lot of it going around, and there's a lot, you can see the sway of the people. As I was saying, it's like, look, I wouldn't be talking about this if this was 20 years ago. I remember 30 years ago listening to some old man talk about how the dollar was going to crash and gold was going to go through the roof, and this was all going to happen because, whatever, politicians or whatever. And it's like, well, yeah, I believe that's going to happen, but man, your prediction was way off. Like, yeah, we should have never taken the dollar off of the gold, off the gold standard. But what I'm saying is like, I wouldn't be talking about any of this stuff if it wasn't for the fact that it's like, look, it is different. What we're living through right now, there has been a complete shift in the wind, right? I don't know what it's like where you guys live, but in San Diego, like you know the seasons by, because we really only have one season in San Diego. You know what I mean? It gets cold for like a week in the middle of January, and it gets hot for like a week in the middle of the end of August, early September, and that's it. The rest of the year, it's perfect. We have these winds, right? Most part of the year the winds come in off of the ocean, and part of the year the winds come in from the north. But around the fall, every year, General Santa Ana attacks us again. They're called the Santa Ana winds. And it's these winds that come up off of the Sonora Desert. And they're dry as a bone, and they're hot. And that's why California burns down the way it does, is because of these winds. It's dry, it's hot, it's constant, right? And you can tell like what time of year that you're in by which direction and how the wind feels when it's hitting you. And when that Santa Ana wind hits you, let me tell you something. It's dry, it's dusty, it causes nosebleeds. You know what I mean? It's so dry and dirty that like it cakes your nose and it just dries you out, and the next thing you know, you got a nosebleed. It's like that. And we're living in a time when, man, the wind has shifted. It's not like, in the 1970s when they were talking about Roe v. Wade, like, oh, we need to, there's all these women that are dying from coat hanger back alley abortions, man. We need to fix this, right? Back then it was like even the people that were like the biggest advocates for abortion were like, yeah, we're not talking about like giving out abortions like Pez dispensers. We're talking about like when there's a medical need. Maybe the lady's a rape victim or a victim of incest, which is also rape, I suppose, and what if she's got diabetes or otherwise the baby is a threat to her life. It was like those people were talking. We're living in a time where powerful people that have the power of celebrity and political power are broadcasting to the world like, no, abortion is your rite of passage into the new age, right? They're saying like, oh no, we are enlightened now. We are an enlightened people, and if you want to be enlightened, you need to murder that life in your belly, or else you're not one of us. That's a shift. If you would have sat down with a liberal 10 years ago, 2008, right? Wasn't that long ago. Remember, there was the housing crisis, and there was and President Bush was leaving office, and this new guy was coming in. Remember, it wasn't that long ago. In 2008, if you would have sat down with like the most bedwetting liberal that you could find and said, hey, what do you think about this? What would you think if a comedian, like a really famous comedian who had a talk show, got on stage and said, God bless abortion, yay? They'd say, no, come on, that's not what we're talking about. Hey, I'm a bedwetting liberal, and I'm with Bill Clinton, man. Bill Clinton said we need to have abortion, and it needs to be rare, but it needs to be safe, or whatever he said, rare but safe, or some whatever. What I'm saying is like we're living in a time where just 10 years ago, if you would have sat down with the most staunch liberal, okay, or how about this? Like when gay marriage was going on, if when that debate was going on, when we sat down with those people and we said, look, the thing is, we don't want you, like, you can go into your bedroom, do whatever you want to do. We don't want you in our schools teaching our children about your lifestyle choices. We don't want you teaching our children. And they were like, no. God forbid. We're not trying to teach your children anything. We don't want to be around your kids. That's not us. That's pedophiles, man. That's not us. What do we have? And if you would have sat down with them 10 years ago when that debate was going on, or whenever it was, legally, I'm talking about in the courts, and you showed them a picture of these people dressed up like drag demons, and these 10-year-old little boys that are drag queens and they're being celebrated on TV. And if you showed them that, they'd say, "What is this? Like some sort of skit?" No, we're not for that. And now if you're not for that, then you're not a liberal. You're not a progressive. The wind has shifted, and the darkness. It's like if you ever saw that movie Constantine with Keanu Reeves, and if you have not, I strongly recommend it. There's a lot of people that say it's a crappy movie. It's like, no, I could not disagree more. You need to watch that movie. And by the way, this is where I lose even more audience members. There's people like that, right? That movie Constantine is based on a comic book, and the comic book is based on. Let me just put. There's people like that. When you watch Constantine, there are people like that. Anyways, Constantine did this thing where he's like, he brings his arms together. He's got these two tattoos, and it's the tattoo is of a triangle, and the triangle is historically throughout many cultures and going all the way back. The triangle has always been a symbol for God, and the upside down triangle has always been a symbol for man. Right? So he brings his little triangle together and he says, "Into the light I command you." And right now there is a battle between light and darkness. And we know that this battle is raging because the darkness is walking around right out in the light. It's a very bizarre time. They're no longer trying to hide the fact that they celebrate abortion as like a religious rite of passage. They're no longer trying to hide the fact that they want to sexualize children so that they might be able to steal the innocence of children. Right? They're no longer trying to hide the fact. There's that congressman from California, and I should have done show prep on this. This guy was on Tucker Carlson just a couple of months ago, and he said, "Well, listen, in California, what we need to have is a voluntary buyback program, where if you don't come and sell us back your guns, then you will be in violation of the law." And Tucker Carlson says, "Well, what then? Are you going to go to their houses?" And he's like, "No. We're not talking about confiscation. We're just saying it'll be required of you by law to come turn in your guns, and we'll pay you back for it." And Tucker Carlson's like, I don't understand how you're not hearing me. If they don't turn in their guns, then they would be in violation of the law. And what do we do with people who break the law? We go get them. We go pick them up, put them in the pokey. And so this very guy who is a congressman, a sitting U.S. congressman, was just joking around on Twitter the other day. Ha ha ha, we've got nukes. He's talking about using nuclear weapons on his own people. Now, yes, I understand. He's just talking over the top, but you have to understand. He sits in a seat of power, and when he speaks, people listen to his words, and they give those words gravity. The same way you and I, when we go to church, regardless of who's up on stage, there's a guy on stage, and that guy has a microphone. We immediately lend that person gravity. We say, okay, you must be important because you're up on a stage, you're over me, you're elevated above me, and you've got a microphone. So clearly, you know what the hell you're talking about. When you go to, it's like this. When you go to, I don't know, Chick-fil-A or Dunkin' Donuts coffee or wherever you take your coffee, because I know that you don't go to Starbucks, because if you did, that would make you a bad person. But you go to your place of coffee or place you get your sandwich, and you see somebody in scrubs, right? And what do you automatically think? Doctor, or even nurse. Nurses are by the way, nurses are there's a reason that nurses make a lot of money in America. Those are very highly educated people who do God's work. That's not easy work that they do. But when we see somebody in scrubs, we think, oh, doctor or nurse, or either way, very learned person in the medical profession. But did you know that the janitor at the hospital, they also have to wear scrubs? you could be looking at you might be looking at the janitor, but the fact is, like, you lend them a certain amount of gravity. They pull weight, right? And so when this congressman from California, and I'm sorry that I didn't write it down before I started recording, but you all heard it. It's like, yes, I know he was being an asshole and joking around, but it doesn't matter, because there's people out there that when they listen to him, they're like, yeah, the government, man, they're gonna show these capitalist swine. That's why we can't have that. You know what I mean? Propaganda. And Guy Verhofstadt, Verhofstadt, Verhofstadt. There's only two types of people that I don't like in this world: people that are intolerant of other people's cultures, and the Dutch. Come on, name that movie. Guy Verhofstadt, the former Prime Minister of Brussels. Again, I said this yesterday, I made this point, I'm not kidding. I know I talk a lot about demons and angels and stuff on this show, and I still think that, like, when I say these things, I still have yet to properly explain how I conceptualize those things. I'm gonna repeat this for you, what I said yesterday. If you want to see the face of Satan, Hazatan, formerly known as Lucifer, also known as the Morning Star, Nande Bloom, the Prince of the Air. If you want to see his face, go pull up that clip of Guy Verhofstadt talking about sovereignty. It's the clip where he's wearing sort of a tan-looking suit. That's the face of Satan. That's what Satan looks like. You can see it in his face. You can see it in his teeth. You can see it. You can see it in his breathing patterns. You can see it in the way that his body moves. Give me your power. Give me your power. My life is harder because you won't give me your power. The need for power, if you want to see it, it's right there for you. Also, if you want to see the face of Satan, like, go back, pull up some of those YouTube videos of Hitler's speeches, and don't even read the subtitles. Like, find the ones without the subtitles, and just, if you don't speak German, I don't speak German. Just watch those speeches. Listen to how passionate he is. Right? You don't need to know what he's saying, because ultimately you do know what he was saying. Right? We've got to restore national pride, man. We need to restore Europe, right? We need to control Europe, man. We need control. Our whole financial system is collapsing, man. We got to get control. By the way, let's kill the Jews. What? Oh, hold on. I'll explain that last part later. You can watch those. It's like, dude, that's what it looks like. I want to be God. I'm not content with my own power. I want God's power. I want somebody else's power. I want somebody else's money. I want somebody else's, happiness, their family life, their health, their whatever. It's that age-old, it goes back to Jacob and Esau, right? Stop trying to dress yourself up like your brother in order to con your father into giving you some blessing. Be content in what you have. You have the power. That's what I'm saying. Like, you've been given the power. You're made in the image of God. That's all there is. And it's more than you can possibly imagine. There's a part of you that directly represents God. You know what I'm saying? There's something about you that is in the image of God. A duplication of God. I'm trying to pick my words carefully here, but you understand what I'm saying. These people, Guy Verhofstadt, I want power. Go look at his face. That's Satan. And propaganda. I wanted to talk about this a little bit. I'm going to talk about the Proud Boys The Guardian, which is, I wouldn't wipe my ass with the Guardian for fear that I would get a rash. Like the Guardian is a garbage. It's tabloid, right? It's which most journalism these days, including a lot of what happens on Fox, is tabloid, right? You remember the National Enquirer, the Daily Sun, and all these. You remember Bat Boy, and we found Bigfoot, and he was riding on the back of the Loch Ness Monster. It's like there used to be a place for that. There used to be a place for tabloid journalism. It was a separate, for people like me, it was a separation from reality, where it's like, I'm going to read this comic book, and the reason why this is funny is because they're trying to pass it off as real news. I get it, and I know that the editor at the National Enquirer, I know he or she gets it, that it's a joke. It's entertainment. There's no Bat Boy. They didn't find Bigfoot. Like, I'm just going to read these stories because it's hilarious. Oh, first man gives birth to baby. It's like, no, I'm going to read the story because it's hilarious. But wouldn't you know it, there was a lot of people that thought that the National Enquirer and publications like that were like legit, like full-on legit, sources of news. So many, in fact, that the National Enquirer started getting sued. There were so many people that thought, like, oh, this is real. And then when they read it, and then later found out that it wasn't real, they sued and won. They said, hey, you're supposed to be a news organization. We're going to sue you because you fed us BS. And the National Enquirer is like, yeah, but that's what we sell. We sell bullshit here. That's kind of the point. Like, when you read Far Side comics, you don't actually think a cowboy has a grand piano in his back pocket, do you? No. That's why it's hilarious. Anyways, The Guardian. That's what The Guardian is. It's tabloid. And if it's not slanted, it doesn't get printed. They're like the Young Turks. It's like anytime that you scroll through Facebook or your YouTube, whatever, and you see the Young Turks videos, it's like, okay, I already know what this is about. It's about calling everybody a racist. Everybody's a racist. Racist, misogynist, xenophobe, Islamophobe, homophobe, all the phobes. That's what this story is going to be about. I don't even need to click on it. I already know what they're going to say. They're gonna call me a racist. It's the same way with The Guardian. It's like, all right, this is going to be some bedwetting, left-leaning. There's not going to be any other slant than everybody coming up from Africa is superior to us, and they're all doctors and engineers, and they're just here to help Europe get through this next phase, right? Gay people, everybody needs to be gay. It's the only way for mankind to progress. Everybody has to be gay married. Nobody can marry inside their own race, because that's if you're doing that, like, you're a caveman, you're a troglodyte if you do that. You know what I mean? It's weird. Anyway, so they come out with this article about the Proud Boys, saying that the FBI has classified them as an extremist group. Now, this is I went ahead and read the article, and I think my ass got a rash from that. I read the article, and it was making some claims. Look, propaganda. I was reading. You hear these things recently saying, well, there's more people on the far right committing acts of terror than there are Muslims in America. And there's actually statistics that bear that out. That by itself, that statement is true. But when you get into the body count, it's not true at all, right? Like, September 11th took care of everything for the alt-right. Whoever the alt-right is, whoever the Ku Klux Klan or the neo-Nazis are, whoever those people actually are, September 11th covered them for decades to come, right, at the pace that they're on. But the thing is that I started looking into those stats. Because the Young Turks will say, even Ben Shapiro has said it. Like, oh, there's more white supremacists or neo-Nazis or whatever. These people have committed more more occurrences of terrorist crimes than radicalized Muslims in America. And it's like, okay, well, let me dive into that. So I pulled it up. It's like, okay, well, where does this information come from? Well, it comes from these, evidently, these 4 professors who have been tasked by the federal government to crunch this data. But I'm looking through it, and it's like, well, wait a minute. Number one, I don't know what it doesn't tell me what the definition of alt-right is. And one of the categories of somebody who is considered to be like a far right or like a neo-Nazi or whatever is to be an anti-communist. And it's right there for you to read that these people aren't trying to hide it. And so, well, wait a minute, I'm anti-communist. Does that make me a terror threat? Because according to your literature, Professor, it does. I am anti-communist, and there's an act of Congress that says anybody who is a natural-born United States citizen is anti-communist. We have laws on the books that are anti-communist. So technically, we're all anti-communist. But now you're saying that because I'm anti-communist, like I'm part of a hate group? And if the FBI has labeled the Proud Boys an extreme group, it's like, oh, well, didn't you see New York City? Yes, I did. I did see what happened in New York City. And because I took in all of the information, I saw that the Proud Boys were attacked first. And, pardon my language, okay, hold on. Elephant in the room. Guys, I gotta quit cussing. My cussing days are over, but there's a saying that the Proud Boys use. I mean, they did not originate it, but it goes like this: F around and find out. So F, you know what that means. F around and find out. Right? You're about to find out. And the Proud Boys, some of those guys were in New York City, and they were attacked by people who wanted to find out. And guess what? They effed around, and they found out. And suddenly there's all these news stories saying, look at these Proud Boys, they're terrorists. Look at them, they're just running around just beating people up that disagree with them. It's like, oh no, there's more footage. You can go back even a little bit further. You can actually keep rewinding another 2 or 3 minutes, and what you will see will tell you a whole different story. Propaganda is what I'm saying. That there are people that have been tasked by the government to label people alt-right or terror threat or this sort of thing. And then you get into the fact that we already have the Patriot Act, which says if the government decides that you are a terrorist, they can snatch you up, fly you down to Cuba, and keep you there for the rest of your life. Do you understand that that's what the Patriot Act is? Well, it's one of the things. That's what the Patriot Act is. That's why George Bush can burn in hell. That's why I'm so sorry that I voted for that guy. I mean, it's probably better than the alternative, but that guy signed the Patriot Act. And now if the federal government doesn't like you, if they want to silence you, they have but to just snatch you up, ship you off to Cuba, and you will not get due process. You will no longer have the right to an attorney, the right to a speedy trial, none of those things. It's all gone. So these definitions and the usage of these words, it becomes very important. This is where being a word snob such as myself is important. Because you need to know what these words mean. And when somebody says, oh, the Proud Boys, they're an alt-right extremist group, it's like, okay, well, hold on. What is an alt-right? Hand to God, folks, to this day, on Wednesday, November 21st in the year 2018, I still do not know what that phrase means. I don't know what alt right. I don't know what that means. The Proud Boys are an alt-right extremist group. Okay, well, what's alt-right, and what are you saying is extreme? Oh, well, they're self-professed Western chauvinists. Okay, well, I honestly I don't know what chauvinism means. Let's consult Merriam-Webster since 1828. By the way, Merriam-Webster has also been changed. All right, there's definitions in Merriam-Webster. I'm not going to get into it right now. I'll do a show on this even later. But if you can go to an old, like one of those used bookstores, right? If you can go to a library with your library card and just take a book and decide to not return it for 20 years, you need to go find a dictionary that was printed before 1980. All right, the meanings of words have been slowly and like they're changing them. So here's Merriam-Webster, which is one of my trusted sources, but it says definition of chauvinism. Number one, male chauvinism, an attitude of superiority towards members of the opposite sex. It's like, well, wait a minute. An attitude of so chauvinism is an attitude. It's like, well, like when it comes to moving the sofa, right? When it comes to moving a refrigerator, when it comes to I don't know, pulling the transmission off of a 5-ton truck, I am superior to women. When it comes to moving the refrigerator, I am physically stronger. My bones are more dense. My muscle, you know what I mean? Like my muscle density, my height. You know what I'm saying? Like I am physically more capable of moving a refrigerator than a large majority of all the women on the planet. So when it says an attitude of superiority towards members of the opposite sex, it's like that definition sounds a lot like misogyny, and I'm not going to bother to pull up the definition of misogyny right now, but it's like, well, that's an attitude of superiority. It's like, yes, at all times I'm walking around thinking, if I need to move the refrigerator, at no time am I going to allow my wife to attempt that. She weighs 100 pounds soaking wet. She's not a big lady, all right? She's not moving a refrigerator. I'm not going to let her damage her body, get a hernia, pull a disc, throw a disc. I'm not gonna, no. I am physically superior to my wife when it comes to that. Now, when it comes to the construction, the assembly of a human being, right? My wife is physically superior to me. My wife has created 2 human beings for me, for the both of us, for our marriage and for our bloodline, right? Our genetic material, when the 2 of us are gone, part of us will live on. It's all because my wife is, when it comes to building a human being, my wife is far and away physically superior to me when it comes to that, right? The reason I'm saying this is this thing of because I was reading the Guardian article, and they're like, oh, they're self-professed chauvinists. It's like, okay, all right. Sounds terrible. That sounds like a terrible thing. Let's find out what a chauvinist is. Definition of chauvinism. 1, an attitude of superiority towards members of the opposite sex. Number 2, regional chauvinism. An undue partiality or attachment to a group or place to which one belongs or has belonged. Now wait a minute here. Hold on. Undue, right? The Proud Boys are self-professed Western chauvinists. When they say Western chauvinist, that means that this is a very specific type of chauvinism. The type, in this case, is regional. Regional chauvinism. The definition of regional chauvinism is undue partiality or attachment to a group or place to which one belongs or has belonged. It's like, wait a minute, undue. I do have a partiality and attachment and a superiority complex about the Western world. Why? Because we've invented everything, right? We conquered famine. Famine no longer applies to us. Famine. None of us are old enough to remember. None of us. If you're listening to the show, none of us. Not me, not you, not anybody. And probably nobody that you know. The last time famine hit. Because, by the way, it was recent. It was the 1920s, I think, 20s or 30s, the Dust Bowl in America. That was the last time famine hit. We don't have famine anymore. We cured it. We figured out how to conquer the blight, right? Because all of the soil on the earth is blighted now because of the Irish. Anyways, we conquered that. Like we don't have like polio anymore. Like we have vaccines now. It doesn't take 8 months to go from, Boston to San Francisco, or from Boston to Portland, on the Oregon Trail. Now it takes 3 hours. 6 if you connect it to, Chicago. But, you know what I mean? Like, the Western world, the Christian world, we've pretty much, like, all of the major things, that's us. That's us for the last 2,000 years. Running water, irrigation, vaccines, aerodynamics, going to the moon, putting, cars on Mars. That's all the West. Oh, but the Muslims invented, what was it? Algebra. That's what it was. Well, the Muslims came up with algebra. Well, thank you for your contribution. Oh, I'll tell you what. Like if we're doing it like that, well, I'll see your algebra and I'll raise you trigonometry and calculus. How's that? You know what I mean? Like don't. Well, these other people figured out. Yeah. Like that really compares. No, it doesn't. Thanks for your 2 cents. Yes, I am very partial to the Western world, and I'm even more so partial to the United States. And although, like, much of its history is not my own, I didn't live it myself, I am connected to those things. Because of my membership in the United States Marine Corps, my fraternal membership, you know what I mean? Like, those things I am partial. I am ready to die for my country. I am ready to kill for my country. I am wildly partial to the Western world, and especially as it applies to the far, far west, the United States. And even further west to California, where I'm from, and it breaks my heart to see what California has become and is becoming. An undue partiality. It's like, what do you mean undue? The Western world is the best. Nobody has lifted more people out of poverty, freed people from slavery. Nobody. Nobody has done what we've done. Say, oh, what about all the terrible things? Yeah, man. There's been some really wild things that have happened. And you know what? Because we are Westerners, we all look back on those things and say, okay, that goes against. Like, for some reason, we derivated. Is that the right word? No, that's derived. Deviated, sorry. See what happens when I get sick? We deviated from the path in the 1930s in Germany. We deviated from the path during the Anabaptist Wars. Like, we deviated from the path when this, that, and the other. Yes, that has happened. And because we are Christian people, we look back on those things and say, never again. We can't do that again. Just like we're looking at right now, when we're looking at Guy Verhofstadt. Verhofstadt. The Dutch. And he's doing that old familiar song, like, oh, we need more power, we need more power. Christian people, you need to open your eyes and see what's happening, because we've seen this before. And because we are Western people, and we have a well-deserved, well-earned partiality or attachment to a group or place to which one belongs or has belonged, we can look at that man and say, no, 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 no. We've seen you before. We've seen you before. We've seen you many times before. We've heard those words before, sir. You're carrying familiar spirits, and we're all familiar with them. We're not letting you get away with it, not this time. Surprise, Prince of Darkness. There's social media now. We can see you. You got away with it in the 30s because nobody could see what was going on. For the love of God, Adolf Hitler was Time magazine's Man of the Year. You want to know how that's possible? It's because nobody could see what was actually happening. Now we can. We can see everything. We can see Guy Verhofstadt standing there in the council saying, give me power. I want your power. We can see people misdirecting and using propaganda against the Proud Boys, saying, oh, these are bad people. They're chauvinists. Yeah, they're chauvinists. So am I. I'm not a chauvinist. I am a regional chauvinist. I am a Western chauvinist. Right? And I am a masculist. Right? I have an attitude of superiority when it comes to the things that I am superior in. I am superior when it comes to moving refrigerators. My wife is superior when it comes to making human beings. Right? I can do both. Remember that scene from Archer? Anyways, Bitcoin is down. The cryptocurrency market is down. And I'm just going to leave you with this because I got to take my baby to the hospital here in about 10 minutes. But he's not feeling well. He's got the runs. He's only born on, what is he? Today at 10:20 at night, he'll be 4 days old. Listen, over the course of the last year, the cryptocurrency market has shed over $800 billion. I'm sorry, that's not true. The cryptocurrency market has shed very nearly $800 billion. $800 billion. If you guys were, if you're one of the ghost creeps or the crypto creeps and like you've been listening almost a whole year now. Oh, by the way, my 1 year anniversary for the podcast is coming up next month. You guys know, like I've tried to conceptualize like how much money $1 billion is. It's an obscene, like it's $1 billion is so much money that it's very difficult to get people to be able to conceptualize it. It's like you'd have to spend, what was it? It was like $72,000 a day or $250,000 a day or something for 72 years. It was some sequence of numbers. It's an impossible amount of money. $1 billion is an impossible amount of money. And there was 800 of those in the cryptocurrency market. There was $800 billion. That's almost $1 trillion. And now it's all but vaporized. The cryptocurrency market shed 75% of its value in, 3 months? It went from 800 down to 500, down to 4, down to 3, and then it bottomed out at 250. And then it crept down to 200, right? In the last 12 months, there was $800 billion in, I'm quoting it in US dollars, so that's rupee and zloty and pesos and, lek and all these different currencies. But in US dollars, over $800 billion has left the market, and now there's only $150 billion. You have to ask yourself, looking at these markets, because again, shifting, the winds have shifted. I've told you guys this before, like when I started the Cryptocurrently podcast, it wasn't about giving you guys advice about where to put your money. It was about how to not go crazy, because I saw the crazy coming. I made that abundantly clear on almost every episode, right? You have to ask yourself, to the original creeps, like, you have to ask yourself, where did that money go? Right? When the tech boom happened, there was all that money that was going into, IPO this and IPO that, slicebread.com and cars.com and Oh, and Warren Buffett says he's not going to buy eBay or Amazon because he's an old fuddy-duddy. He doesn't understand it. He's not going to buy it, right? And then the tech thing, the tech bubble collapsed and they all lost their asses. Where did that money go? We can see where that money went. When the tech bubble crashed, we can see where all that money went. There was a huge shift of wealth. All those people that bought those stocks enriched the lives of the people behind cars.com and behind eBay and Amazon and eDigital and all these different tech companies. It went to those people. We can see it. Where did the $800 billion in the cryptocurrency market go? Where's all the new billion? You know what I mean? There's $800 billion missing. Not really. $700 billion. Still. Are there 700 new billionaires? Are there 1,400 new people that have $500 million? Like, where's the money? Where did it go? Where are these people now? You know what I mean? Like, you have to ask yourself that question, because it's not, you're talking about it's not even so much that $1 trillion went missing, right? I'm just going to round up. It's $800 billion. I'm just going to round up, just call it $1 trillion. And now there is 150 billion. It's not so much that wealth transferred. It's the fact that it transferred in the amount of time that it did. That reeks of a concerted effort. And then when you go back and you listen to the rhetoric of last year, remember, every time somebody would start ripping on Warren Buffett, I would always stand in the gap. Oh, Warren Buffett, he's some old dude who can't figure out cryptocurrencies. What an idiot. He also didn't buy Amazon.com when it was available to him. It's like, dude, remember, I would always tell you, like, don't do that. Don't make that mistake. Don't make that mistake. Don't get into an argument about the wise handling of money with Warren Buffett. Don't get into an argument about proper health and nutrition and exercise with Jack LaLanne. Don't do it. You're going to lose. And you're going to look stupid in the process. Don't do that. Yes, Warren Buffett could be wrong, but probably not. He's the wisest man in the world when it comes to that arena of life, investing. Anyways, that's a different topic. Like, where'd that money go? Where'd it go? Where's all the new innovation? When that money transferred hands and it went to, these people that are, behind, the cryptocurrencies and that are working with blockchain technology and all this stuff, like, where are they now? Is that where the money went? $1 trillion in a year? Something awfully fishy about that. And it is comical to a certain degree, like all those people that were like, we don't want regulation, man. We want a decentralized, unregulated market because, man, the will of the people, man. It's like, oh, you want regulation now? Now that BitConnect just walked off with all your money? Trevon James is still out there making videos? God help me understand that. Guy still has like 100,000 followers on YouTube. It's like, who's listening to this guy? Who is listening to that guy? You know what I mean? Sometimes it makes me feel like I'm on crazy pills. Anyways, yeah, cryptocurrencies, $1 trillion changed hands. You've got Guy Verhofstadt talking about give me more power. You've got propaganda coming from the government, calling everybody who doesn't like communists the alt-right, and evidently, according to the federal government, alt-right is a word that means a very bad person that needs to be removed from our society. That's propaganda, and it's dangerous, right? So stir that into your coffee. Listen, if you want to support the show, go on to archadvocate.com, become a Patreon monthly supporter, or just do PayPal me/archadvocate. We could use the dough. Thank you, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.